The ship landed on the Valari homeworld, just as the twin suns began to set. Kung Tae-woo stepped onto alien soil for the first time and felt the weight of 1,000 eyes upon him. The Valari who watched from the landing platform did not hide their disgust. To them, he was nothing more than an animal that had learned to walk upright. Tae-woo was 32 years old. He had fought in 3 wars on Earth before the aliens made first contact. When the Galactic Council offered humanity a chance to prove themselves useful, the military sent their best soldiers as security contractors. Tae-woo was not the strongest or the fastest, but he was the one who always came back alive. The Valari were beautiful in a way that made humans feel ugly. Their skin glowed with a soft blue light, like moonlight trapped beneath glass. They stood almost 7 feet tall, with long limbs and faces that showed little emotion. They had ruled this sector of space for 10,000 years. Humans had only discovered fire a few hundred generations ago. A Valari officer approached the human team. He looked at them the way a person might look at insects crawling across a dinner table. "You will guard the outer gates," he said. His voice was cold. "You will not enter the inner palace. You will not speak to any member of the royal family. You will not touch anything. Is this understood?" The human commander nodded and thanked the officer. Tae-woo said nothing. He had learned long ago that words were wasted on people who had already decided what you were worth. The outer gates were far from the palace proper. Tae-woo stood at his post for 12 hours each day, watching nothing happen. The real security was handled by energy shields and automated systems. The humans were there only for show, a way for the Valari to demonstrate their new alliance with the primitive species from Earth. At night, when his shift ended, Tae-woo trained alone in a small courtyard near the barracks. He ran until his lungs burned. He did push-ups until his arms shook. He practiced combat forms with a wooden stick he had carved himself. The Valari thought physical training was barbaric. They relied on technology to protect them. Tae-woo knew that technology could fail. On his 7th night on the planet, Tae-woo felt someone watching him. He continued his exercises without looking up. The watcher was trying to stay hidden behind a stone pillar, but Tae-woo had spent years hunting and being hunted. He knew when eyes were on him. He finished his final form and bowed to an imaginary opponent. Then he turned toward the pillar. "You can come out," he said quietly. "I will not tell anyone." There was a long silence. Then a young Valari female stepped into the light. She was smaller than the others he had seen, perhaps still a teenager by their standards. Her blue skin glowed brighter when she realized she had been caught. "How did you know I was there?" she asked. Her voice was musical, like bells ringing underwater. "I felt you watching," Tae-woo said simply. "That is impossible." I made no sound. "I cast no shadow." Tae-woo shrugged. "Humans are prey animals. We learned to feel when predators were near. It kept us alive." The young Valari stared at him with wide silver eyes. She had never heard a species describe themselves as prey before. Most aliens boasted about their strength and power. This human spoke of weakness, as if it were something to be proud of. "I am Sora," she said finally. Tae-woo recognized the name. "Princess Sora, only daughter of Queen Mira, heir to the Valari throne." He dropped to one knee immediately. "Forgive me, princess. I did not know." "Stand up," Sora said quickly. "I do not want you to kneel. I came here because I was curious about your kind. The others say humans are dangerous. They say you kill each other for sport." "We kill each other," Tae-woo admitted as he rose. "But not for sport. We kill because we are afraid or angry or desperate. Sometimes we kill to protect the people we love. It is not something we are proud of." Sora tilted her head, studying him. "You are not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "A monster," she said honestly. "But you seem sad more than anything else." Tae-woo almost smiled. "Perhaps those are not so different, princess." Sora opened her mouth to respond, but a sharp alarm cut through the night air. Red lights began flashing across the courtyard. Tae-woo moved without thinking, putting himself between the princess and the darkness beyond the walls. "What is happening?" Sora asked, fear creeping into her voice. Tae-woo scanned the shadows. His eyes caught movement near the eastern wall. Something was flying toward them, small and fast and wrong. "Assassin drone," he said. "Get behind me. Do not move." "The palace shields will stop it," Sora said, but her voice trembled. "The guards will activate the defense protocols." Teiwu could hear distant shouting. The Valari guards were scrambling, trying to access their systems, but something was wrong. The shields were not activating. Someone had sabotaged them. The drone came screaming out of the darkness, its weapons already glowing with deadly energy. It was heading straight for the princess. Teiwu did not hesitate. He grabbed a fallen energy blade from a rack near the training ground and ran toward the drone instead of away from it. The drone's targeting system could not process this behavior. Every species in the galaxy ran from threats. None ran toward them. Tei-Wu leaped into the air and brought the blade down with all his strength. The drone tried to adjust its aim, but it was too slow. The blade cut through its center, and the machine exploded in a shower of sparks and metal. Teiwu hit the ground hard. Pieces of the drone had cut his face and arms. Blood ran down his cheek, red against his pale skin. He stood up slowly, checking for more threats. There were none. The night was quiet again. Valari guards finally arrived, their weapons drawn. They stared at the destroyed drone, then at the bleeding human standing over it. None of them could understand what had just happened. Princess Sora stepped forward. Her eyes were fixed on Teiwu. "You saved my life," she whispered. Teiwu wiped blood from his face and bowed. "I was just doing my job, Princess." He walked back to his post without another word. Behind him, Sora watched him go with an expression that no Valari had ever worn while looking at a human before. The next morning, Atiwu was summoned to the throne room. Queen Mira sat upon a crystal seat that seemed to float above the ground. Her face was beautiful and terrible, like a frozen star. Beside her stood General Kova, the commander of all Valari military forces. His eyes were fixed on Teiwu with open hatred. "You acted without authorization," the queen said. Her voice filled the massive chamber. "You used a weapon you were forbidden to touch. You endangered my daughter with your reckless behavior." Teiwu kept his head bowed. "I saw a threat to the princess. I eliminated it. If this was wrong, I accept any punishment." "Punishment?" General Kova stepped forward. "This animal should be executed. He has proven that humans cannot follow simple orders. I've saved my life, Mother." All eyes turned to Princess Sora, who had entered the throne room through a side door. She walked toward the throne with a confidence that surprised everyone. The shields failed. Sora continued. "The guards could not stop the drone. This human did what none of our people could do. He protected me." Queen Myra looked at her daughter for a long moment. Then she turned back to Teiwu. "What do you want, human?" "Nothing, Your Majesty. Only to serve." Princess Sora stepped forward. "Then let him serve me. I want him as my personal guard." The court gasped. General Kova's face twisted with anger. Queen Mira raised one elegant hand for silence. "You ask me to trust your life to a human? I ask you to trust the human who already saved it," Sora replied. The queen stared at Teiwu for what felt like an eternity. Finally, she spoke. "A trial period. 1 month. If he fails in any way, he dies." Teiwu bowed deeply. "I will not fail, Your Majesty." As he rose, his eyes met Princess Sora's. She smiled at him, the first smile he had seen since arriving on this world. Teiwu did not smile back. But somewhere deep inside his chest, something that had been frozen for a very long time began to thaw. The first week was the hardest. Teiwu followed Princess Sora everywhere, standing in corners while nobles whispered about the human guard dog. They did not bother to lower their voices. They wanted him to hear. "Look at how it stands there," one lord said during a feast. "Like a trained animal waiting for scraps." "The princess has always collected strange pets," another replied. "Remember the cave creature she brought home as a child? This is no different." Teiwu said nothing. He had learned to swallow his pride long before he left Earth. Words were weapons that worked both ways. If he responded with anger, he proved them right. If he stayed silent, he remained a mystery they could not solve. Princess Sora heard these comments too. At first, she tried to defend him. Teiwu is not a pet, she told a group of young nobles one afternoon. He is my protector. You would do well to show him respect. But the nobles only laughed, and Teiwu stepped forward before Sora could say more. Princess, he said quietly, your words honor me, but I do not need their respect. I only need to keep you safe. Sora looked at him with frustration in her silver eyes. Does it not bother you? The things they say? I have heard worse, Princess. Much worse. She wanted to ask him what he meant, but something in his face told her not to push. There were shadows behind his eyes that she was not ready to see. As the days passed, Sora found herself spending more time with Teiwu. At first, she told herself it was simply because he was always there. But slowly, she realized she was choosing his company over others. She asked him questions about Earth. He told her about blue skies and green forests, about oceans that stretched beyond sight and mountains that touched the clouds. He spoke of cities where millions of humans lived stacked on top of each other, and villages where families had lived for generations on the same land. It sounds beautiful, Sora said one evening as they walked through the palace gardens. It is, Teiwu agreed, but it is also broken. Humans have not always been kind to their world or to each other. Why do you fight so much? Your species, I mean. You have wars constantly. Teiwu was quiet for a moment. The garden flowers glowed softly in the fading light, colors that did not exist on Earth. We fight because we feel too much, he said finally. Love, fear, anger, hope. Our emotions burn hot and bright. Sometimes that burning turns into creation. Sometimes it turns into destruction. We have not learned to control the fire inside us. Sora studied his face, the scars on his hands, the lines around his eyes that should not be there on someone so young by Valari standards. How many wars have you fought in? She asked softly. 3. Were you afraid? Every moment, Teiwu said. Only fools feel no fear. The trick is to act anyway. Yun Hana found Teiwu later that night. She was one of the few humans allowed in the inner palace, working as an assistant to the human ambassador. She was smart and careful, and she worried about Teiwu more than she let anyone see. You are getting too close to the princess, she warned him. They stood in a quiet corner where no one could hear. People are talking. People are always talking. This is different. General Kova has been watching you. He does not like the attention the princess gives you. He is looking for any excuse to have you removed.
Aline.
Teiwu nodded slowly. I know. I have felt his eyes on me. Then be careful. We are expendable here, Teiwu. If something goes wrong, they will not protect us. They will throw us away like broken tools. I know that too, Teiwu said. But I made a promise to protect her. I will not break it. Hana shook her head. You and your promises. One day they will get you killed. 2 weeks later, the diplomatic summit arrived. Leaders from 12 star systems gathered at the Valari Palace to discuss trade agreements and border disputes. Security was everywhere, but most of it was focused on the important guests. Teiwu stood behind Princess Sora in the Great Hall watching the crowd. Something felt wrong. He could not explain it, but his instincts were screaming at him. He scanned the room again. The guards seemed nervous. Some of them were looking at each other instead of watching the crowd. Small signals, barely visible. Like they were waiting for something. Teiwu moved closer to Sora. She glanced back at him with surprise. Is something wrong? She whispered. Before he could answer, the lights went out. Screams filled the darkness. Energy weapons began firing. Teiwu grabbed Sora and pulled her to the ground as plasma bolts flew overhead. The air smelled like burning. The shields. Someone shouted. The shields are not working. Sabotage again. Someone inside the palace was helping the attackers. Teiwu could see shapes moving in the darkness. His eyes adjusted faster than the velarae around him. Humans had evolved to hunt at dawn and dusk, in the spaces between light and dark. This was his territory. He saw 3 attackers moving toward the princess. They wore masks and carried plasma rifles. Professional killers, not random terrorists. Tae-woo did not wait. He threw himself over Sora just as the first attacker fired. The plasma bolt hit him in the back like a hammer made of fire. Then a second bolt. Then a third. The pain was beyond anything he had ever felt. His body wanted to shut down, to surrender to the darkness. But somewhere in his burning mind, he heard Sora screaming his name. He pushed himself up. The attackers stopped. They could not believe what they were seeing. No species could take 3 plasma bolts and keep moving. It was impossible, but Tae-woo was already running at them. He grabbed a broken piece of table from the ground and swung it with all his remaining strength. The first attacker's skull cracked like an egg. The second tried to aim his rifle, but Tae-woo was already on him, driving the broken wood through his throat. The third attacker ran. Tae-woo let him go. He had no strength left to chase. He turned back to Sora. She was staring at him with tears streaming down her face. The blood on his back was steaming, cooking against his burned flesh. "Come," he said. His voice was barely a whisper. "We need to move." He picked her up in his arms and carried her through the chaos. Guards were fighting everywhere. Bodies lay on the marble floor. But Tae-woo kept moving, step by step, until they reached a secure room where loyalist soldiers waited. He set Sora down gently. Then his legs gave out. "Ah-da-woo." Sora caught him as he fell. His eyes were unfocused, his breathing shallow. "Someone help him. Please." Medical teams arrived within minutes. They stripped away his burned clothing and saw the damage. 3 holes in his back, each one deep enough to see bone. By all medical knowledge, he should have died instantly. "His heart has stopped," a doctor announced. They worked on him, shocked him, pumped chemicals into his blood. His heart started again, beat for 30 seconds, then stopped once more. Again, someone ordered. This happened twice more. Each time, they brought him back. Each time, he slipped away. Princess Sora stood in the corner of the medical room, covered in his blood, refusing to leave. She watched the doctors fight for his life, watched the machine struggle to keep up with his failing body. "Why will he not stay dead?" a doctor muttered in frustration. Sora knew the answer. She had seen it in his eyes when he stood up with 3 holes in his back. Humans were not like the Valari. They did not calculate odds or measure risks. When they decided to protect something, they did not stop. They could not stop. It was not in their nature. Queen Mira arrived at the observation window. She stood there in silence, watching the human's chest rise and fall, watching him fight death itself. General Kova appeared beside her. The human acted recklessly. He endangered the princess by engaging the attackers directly. The queen said nothing, Your Majesty. This proves that humans cannot be trusted. Their violence is unpredictable. He could have gotten the princess killed. Queen Mira watched as Tae-woo's heart stopped again, and the doctors brought him back again. "He should be dead 4 times over," she said quietly. "Yet he keeps returning. A quirk of biology. Nothing more." The queen turned to look at Kova. Her eyes were cold as starlight. "Tell me, General, would you have thrown yourself in front of those weapons for my daughter?" Kova's face went pale. He did not answer. Queen Mira turned back to the window. Inside, Tae-woo opened his eyes for just a moment. He saw Sora watching him through the glass. He tried to lift his hand toward her before the darkness took him again. The queen watched this small gesture, and for the first time since the human had arrived on her world, she felt something other than contempt. She felt uncertainty. For 6 days, Tae-woo drifted between worlds. Sometimes he saw flashes of bright lights and heard strange voices speaking in languages he did not understand. Sometimes he was back on Earth, walking through the streets of the city where he grew up. Sometimes he saw nothing at all, just darkness that stretched on forever. Princess Sora did not leave the medical wing. Servants brought her food that she barely touched. Advisors came with urgent messages that she ignored. Her mother ordered her to return to her chambers 3 times. She refused each time. "Save my life," Sora told anyone who questioned her. "The least I can do is be here when he wakes up." The doctors were amazed that he was alive at all. They had never treated a human before. They learned that human bodies were different from Volari bodies in ways they had not expected. Humans healed faster. Their blood clotted more quickly. Their cells fought infection with a ferocity that the doctors found almost frightening. "They are like weeds," one doctor commented to another. "Cut them down, and they grow back." Elder Nyx came to visit on the 4th day. He was the oldest Volari in the palace, an advisor who had served 3 generations of queens. His blue skin had faded to almost white with age, and he walked with a cane made from the bone of some ancient creature. He found Sora sitting beside Tewu's bed, holding the human's scarred hand in her own. "Care for him," Nyx observed. Sora did not deny it. "He is different from what I expected. From what everyone told me humans were." "And what did they tell you?" "That they were violent, savage, unable to control their emotions." Nyx smiled gently. "All of those things are true. And yet here lies a human who used that violence to save you, who let his savage nature protect something precious, whose uncontrolled emotions drove him to keep fighting when any sensible creature would have died." Sora looked up at the old elder. "You do not hate them like the others do. I have studied humans for decades, child. Longer than you have been alive. They fascinate me. Do you know why?" "Why?" "Because they are broken," Nyx said. "And they know they are broken. But instead of surrendering to despair, they use their cracks to let in light. They turn their wounds into wisdom. They transform their pain into purpose. It is a kind of magic that the Volari have forgotten how to perform." Sora looked down at Tewu's sleeping face. Even unconscious, there was tension in his jaw, like he was fighting battles in his dreams. "He told me that humans feel too much," she said, "that their emotions burn hot." "They do. But fire is not only destruction, Princess. Fire is also warmth. It is light in the darkness. It is the power to forge something new." Nyx placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "I suspect this human has warmed something inside you that you did not know was cold." Before Sora could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the medical wing. Guards rushed in, their weapons drawn. "Princess, you must come with us," the lead guard said. "There has been an emergency council session. Your presence is required." Sora squeezed Tewu's hand one last time before following the guards. She did not know that she would not see him again for many days. The council chamber was filled when Sora arrived. All 12 High Lords were present, along with General Kova and Queen Mira. The Queen's face was like stone, betraying nothing. "What is happening?" Sora demanded. "Why was I summoned?" General Kova stepped forward. His voice was smooth, almost friendly, but his eyes were cold. "Princess Sora, we have discovered evidence that the attack at the summit was not the work of external enemies. It was an inside job coordinated by agents within our own palace." Sora felt her blood run cold. "What kind of evidence?" Kova produced a data tablet. Communication records, financial transfers, a clear trail leading to the human security team and their handlers on Earth. "Appears that humanity has been planning to assassinate our royal family as a first step toward domination of our secta." "That is ridiculous," Sora said. "Humans have nothing to gain from attacking us. On the contrary, Princess, with the royal family eliminated, the Volari Empire would fall into chaos. Humanity could position themselves as peacekeepers, slowly gaining power and influence until they controlled everything." Kova smiled. "It is exactly the kind of violent, underhanded strategy that humans are known for." Queen Mira spoke for the first time. "What evidence links the human guard specifically?" "He was positioned perfectly to gain the princess's trust. He allowed the attack to happen, then swooped in to save her, making himself appear heroic. A classic manipulation technique. We believe he was supposed to survive and use his new status to get closer to the royal family." "That makes no sense," Sora shouted. He nearly died. His heart stopped 4 times. Humans are resilient creatures, Kova said calmly. Perhaps his handlers underestimated the danger. Perhaps he was willing to sacrifice himself for the greater mission. Either way, the evidence is clear. Lord Bora, one of the older council members, stood. General Kova makes a compelling case. I move that we execute the human spy immediately as a message to Earth. I second the motion, another lord said quickly. Sora looked at her mother in desperation. You cannot believe this. You watched him fight for his life. You saw what he did to protect me? Queen Myra's expression did not change. The evidence is concerning, daughter. Evidence can be faked. Someone is lying. General Kova shook his head sadly. The princess's judgment has been compromised by her emotional attachment to the human. This is precisely what his handlers intended. I suggest we remove her from this discussion for her own protection. The vote was called. 10 lords voted for execution. 2 abstained. None voted against. Queen Mira had the authority to overrule the council, but doing so would cost her tremendous political capital. It would validate Kova's claims that she had grown soft, that she was allowing emotion to cloud her judgment. The execution will proceed tomorrow at dawn, she announced. Her voice was steady, but Sora saw something flicker in her mother's eyes. Pain, perhaps, or doubt. Sora was escorted back to her chambers under guard. They called it protection, but she knew it was a prison. She paced her room for hours, her mind racing. Taewoo was going to die. He had saved her life, and now he was going to die for it, unless she did something. Late that night, Sora made her decision. She crept through secret passages that she had explored as a child, passages that even the guards did not know. She found her mother's private office and used a code she was never supposed to know to access. The royal seal. With shaking hands, she issued a formal pardon for Kang Taewoo. It was done. He was saved. Then the lights came on. General Kova stood in the doorway, surrounded by guards. Princess Sora, he said, and his voice was no longer smooth. It was triumphant. You are under arrest for treason against the crown. Sora's heart stopped. She understood now. This was what Kova wanted all along. Not just Taewoo dead, but her discredited and imprisoned. With Sora removed and the queen weakened, Kova could make his move for power. She had walked right into his trap. My mother will never allow this, Sora said, trying to keep her voice steady. Kova smiled. Your mother is fighting for her political life right now. The council is questioning her fitness to rule. By the time she realizes what has happened, it will be too late for both of you. He gestured to the guards. Take her to the cells. Put her near the human. Let them say goodbye. As the guards dragged her away, Sora felt tears running down her face. She had tried to save Taewoo, and it only made everything worse. Somewhere in the medical wing, Taewoo finally opened his eyes. The room was empty. The machines beeped quietly around him. Something was wrong. He could feel it in his bones. He tried to sit up, and pain exploded through his body. The wounds on his back screamed in protest. But somewhere in the darkness of the palace, someone needed him. He forced himself upright, swung his legs over the side of the bed, stood on shaking legs that wanted to collapse. He did not know where he was going. He only knew that he had to move. The hunt was not over yet. The prison beneath the palace was cold and dark. Sora sat in a cell made of energy bars that hummed with deadly power. Touching them would mean instant death. She had been there for 3 hours and no one had come to see her. Not her mother. Not any of the servants who had known her since childhood. She was alone. Then she heard footsteps. Heavy boots on stone floor. Guards appeared, dragging someone between them. Even in the dim light, Sora recognized him. He was barely conscious. They had found him trying to leave the medical wing and had beaten him until he stopped fighting. His face was swollen, his eyes nearly shut. Blood dripped from a cut above his eyebrow. The guards threw him into the cell across from Sora and reactivated the energy bars. The general wants them to see each other die, one guard laughed. Poetic, he said. Sora pressed as close to the energy bars as she dared. Taewoo, can you hear me? He lifted his head slowly. One eye was completely swollen shut. The other found her in the darkness, Princess. His voice was rough, broken. Are you hurt? I am fine. They only locked me up. But you? She felt tears threatening again. This is my fault. I tried to save you and made everything worse. Taewoo shook his head, wincing at the pain. You tried? That matters. That always matters. General Kova planned all of this. The attack at the summit, the fake evidence, everything. He wants to take power for himself. I know. Taewoo pulled himself into a sitting position against the wall. Every movement cost him. I heard the guards talking. He plans to kill your mother and blame it on a human assassination plot. Then he will execute you publicly as a traitor. He will unite the Velar under military rule. Can we stop him? Taewoo was quiet for a long moment. He looked at the energy bars, at the stone walls, at the security cameras in the corners. Maybe, he said finally. If I can get out of this cell. How? The bars will kill you if you touch them. Taewoo smiled. It was a terrible smile. The smile of a man who had nothing left to lose. Humans have a saying, Princess. Where there is a will, there is a way. He began to study the cell. The floor, the walls, the ceiling, the energy bars themselves, how they connected to the generators that powered them. He moved slowly, testing his body, seeing what still worked and what was broken. 3 ribs were cracked. His left shoulder was dislocated. The wounds on his back had reopened and were bleeding again. Any sensible person would lie down and wait for death. Taewoo was not sensible. He was human. The generators were built into the ceiling, protected by metal plates. But the plates were old, held in place by bolts that had not been maintained in years. This prison had not held anyone important in a long time. Taewoo tore strips from his medical gown and wrapped them around his hands. Then he began to climb. The walls were smooth, but not perfectly smooth. His fingers found tiny cracks, places where the stone had worn away over centuries. Sora watched in horrified amazement as he pulled himself up inch by inch, his muscles shaking, blood running down his arms. When he reached the ceiling, he wedged himself into a corner and began working on the bolts with his bare fingers. It took an hour. The bolts were stubborn, and his hands were slippery with blood. But one by one, they came loose. The metal plate fell. Behind it, the generator hummed with deadly energy. You will kill yourself, Sora whispered. Probably, Taewoo agreed. Then he reached into the generator and began pulling out wires. The pain was beyond description. Electricity burned through his body like liquid fire. He smelled his own flesh cooking. But he did not let go. He kept pulling, kept tearing, till the generator sparked and died. The energy bars flickered and disappeared. Taewoo fell from the ceiling and hit the ground hard. He did not move. Taewoo, Sora screamed. For a terrible moment, she thought he was dead. Then his hand twitched. His chest rose and fell. He was breathing. He forced himself to his knees, then to his feet. His hands were burned black. His body was shaking so hard he could barely stand. But he was standing. Stay here, he said. I will come back for you. You cannot fight anyone. Taewoo looked at her with his one good eye. I do not need to beat them, Princess. I just need to reach your mother. If I can warn her before Kova moves, she can summon the loyalists. The guards will kill you. Maybe, he turned toward the door, but they will have to work for it. What followed was the longest night of Sora's life. She could not see what was happening, but she could hear it. Shouts, gunfire, screams, the sounds of battle echoing through the stone corridors. Taewoo moved through the prison like a ghost. He had no weapons, so he made them. A loose stone became a club. A broken pipe became a spear. When he killed the first guard, he took the man's energy blade. 6 guards came for him in the main corridor. He killed them all. 4 more waited at the stairway. He killed them too. Each fight cost him. He took cuts, bruises, burns. A blade sliced across his thigh, nearly dropping him. A plasma bolt grazed his shoulder, but he kept moving. Yunhana found him on the 3rd level. She had been hiding since Kova's men started rounding up humans, waiting for a chance to escape. "What are you doing?" she gasped when she saw him. He looked like a corpse that had forgotten to stop walking, saving the princess. "Stopping Kova? Same thing. You are insane. Probably. Can you get a message to the loyalist forces? Tell them Kova is making his move tonight." Hana nodded. "There is a communication station 3 floors up. If I can reach it, go. I will keep them busy." She hesitated. "Taewoo, if you die, then tell them a human tried." He almost smiled. "That is all any of us can do." Hana ran. Taewoo kept climbing. General Kova found him on the 5th level. The general was surrounded by his personal squad, 12 of the best soldiers in the Valari military. They wore heavy armor and carried plasma rifles. They looked at the bleeding, burned, barely standing human and laughed. "Should have died in that cell," Kova said. "But I suppose this is better. I will kill you myself and prove once and for all that humans are nothing but animals." Raise the energy blade he had taken from the guards below, then come and put down this animal. Kova gestured to his men. "Kill him," they fired. Taewoo did not try to dodge. He charged straight into the plasma fire, letting the bolts tear through him as he closed the distance. The soldiers could not believe what they were seeing. They kept firing, but he kept coming. He reached the first soldier and buried his blade in the man's throat. He took that soldier's rifle and used it as a club to break another soldier's skull. He was hit again and again, but he would not fall. The Valari had forgotten what it meant to fight a creature with nothing left to lose. They had forgotten that the most dangerous animal was the one that was already dying. Taewoo killed 12 soldiers in 90 seconds. When he was done, only General Kova remained. The general drew his own energy blade. It was a ceremonial weapon, beautiful and deadly, something he had never actually used in combat. "You cannot beat me," Kova said, but his voice shook. "I am a master of blade combat." Taewa's answer was to reach down and pull a simple metal knife from a dead soldier's belt. It was a utility tool, meant for cutting rope or opening crates. "The most primitive weapon in the room. Your shields are designed to stop energy weapons," Taewoo said. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "But they cannot stop this." Kova swung his blade. It was a perfect strike, elegant and precise. Taewoo stepped inside the arc, took the blade across his chest, and drove the knife into Kova's throat. The general's eyes went wide. He tried to speak, but only blood came out. "Humans do not negotiate with people who threaten children," Taewoo whispered. Kova fell. He did not get up. Taewoo stood over the body for a long moment. Then, his legs finally gave out. Queen Mira found him there 20 minutes later, leading a force of loyalist soldiers. Yunhana had reached the communication station in time. The message had gone out. The coup had failed. The queen stepped over Kova's body and knelt beside Taewoo. He was still breathing, but barely. "Where is my daughter?" she demanded. "Prison," Taewoo managed. "3rd level. Cell 4. She is unharmed." "You did this alone?" "Killed all of these soldiers." Taewoo did not answer. His eye had closed. His breathing was becoming shallow. Queen Mira looked at the carnage around her. 20 bodies, including her trusted general, all killed by a single human who should have died days ago. "Get the medical team," she ordered. "Now, do whatever it takes to save him, Your Majesty," a soldier asked, confused. "He is only a human." The queen stood. Her eyes were blazing with something no one had seen before. "He is the one who saved my daughter when no one else could. He is the one who stopped a traitor when my own guards failed. He has earned more than your respect, soldier. He has earned his life." She looked down at Taewoo's broken body, "and I will not let him die." For 9 days, Taewoo did not wake up. His body lay in the royal medical chamber, connected to more machines than the doctors had ever used on a single patient. His heart stopped twice on the 3rd day. His lungs failed on the 5th. Each time the doctors brought him back. Queen Mira ordered that no expense be spared. Medicine was brought from other planets. Specialists arrived from across the sector. When advisors questioned the cost, the Queen silenced them with a single look. Princess Sora refused to leave his side. She had been freed from the prison within an hour of the coup's failure, but she did not return to her chambers. She sat in the chair beside Taewoo's bed, holding his bandaged hand, talking to him, even though he could not hear. She told him about her childhood, about her father who had died when she was young, about her dreams of making the Empire a kinder place, about how scared she had been during the attack, and how safe she had felt in his arms. "You have to wake up," she whispered on the 7th night. "You cannot die after all of this. It would not be fair." Elder Nyx visited often. He would sit with Sora in comfortable silence, offering tea and wisdom in equal measure. "Do you think he will survive?" Sora asked him one afternoon. "He has already survived things that should have killed him 10 times over," Nyx replied. "I think survival is simply what humans do. They are too stubborn to accept death's invitation." "Why are they like this? Why do they fight so hard?" Nyx considered the question carefully. "I have thought about this for many years, Princess. I believe it is because they live such short lives. The Valari can live for 1,000 years. We have time to be careful, to calculate, to wait for the perfect moment. Humans live for less than a century. They do not have time to wait. Every moment matters. Every life is precious because it will end so soon." He looked at Taewoo's still face. "They love harder because they have less time to love. They fight fiercer because they have fewer battles to fight. They burn brighter because they know the flame will not last." Sora felt tears on her cheeks. Is that why he threw himself in front of those weapons? Because his life matters less to him? No, child. It is because your life mattered more. That is the gift and the curse of being human. They feel the weight of others' lives as heavily as their own, sometimes more heavily. On the 9th day, just as the twin suns were setting, Taewoo opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was Sora, asleep in the chair beside him, her hand still wrapped around his. The second thing he saw was Queen Mira, standing at the foot of his bed. "You are awake," the Queen said. Her voice was softer than he had ever heard it. Taewoo tried to speak, but his throat was too dry. Sora woke at the sound of his struggle and immediately held a cup of water to his lips. Slowly she said, her eyes bright with tears, "You have been asleep for 9 days." He drank. The water was the sweetest thing he had ever tasted. "The princess," he managed finally. "Is she?" "I am right here," Sora said, squeezing his hand. "I am safe. Because of you." Taewoo closed his eyes in relief. When he opened them again, Queen Mira had moved closer. "General Kova's conspiracy has been completely exposed," she said. "The lords who supported him have been arrested. The council has been reorganized. The threat to my family is over. Good." Taewoo's voice was rough, weak. "That is good. The doctors say you will need months to fully recover. You sustained injuries that should have killed any living creature. Yet here you are." The Queen's eyes searched his face. "Why did you do it? You could have escaped. You could have found a way off this planet and returned to Earth. Why did you fight your way through 20 soldiers while your body was falling apart?" Taewoo thought about the question. There were many answers he could give. Duty, honor, obligation. But in the end, there was only one truth. "She was in danger," he said simply, looking at Sora. "And I was the one who could help. That is all." Queen Mira was silent for a long moment. Then she did something that Sora had never seen her do before. She bowed her head to someone else. "I was wrong about your kind," the Queen said. "I believed humans were nothing but violent animals, too primitive to deserve a place in the galaxy. But you have shown me something different. You have shown me that courage is not about strength or technology or the length of one's life. It is about standing against the darkness, even when it costs everything." She raised her head and looked at Taewoo with new eyes. "I would like to reward you for your service. Name anything you desire. Wealth, land, a ship to take you home. It is yours." Taewoo was quiet for a while. The machines beeped softly around him. Sora held her breath. "I would like to stay," he said finally. "If you will have me." Sora's grip on his hand tightened. Queen Mira's expression did not change, but something shifted in her eyes. "You would give up your home? Your planet? Your people?" "I have no family left on Earth," Teiwu said. "The people I cared about are gone. For the first time in many years, I have found something worth protecting. Someone worth protecting." He did not look at Sora, but everyone in the room knew who he meant. "I would like to stay and continue doing that." Queen Mira nodded slowly. "Then you shall stay, but not as a guard." 1 month later, the entire Valari court gathered in the great throne room. Every lord, every lady, every dignitary in the empire was present. They had been summoned for a ceremony that had not been performed in 3,000 years. Teiwu walked down the center aisle, wearing armor made of silver metal that gleamed like starlight. He still moved carefully, his body not fully healed. But his steps were steady, and his head was high. He knelt before the throne where Queen Mira sat with Princess Sora beside her. "Kong Teiwu," the queen announced, her voice carrying through the vast chamber. "You came to us as an outsider. As a member of a species we considered inferior. You were given the lowest duties and the least respect. And yet, when darkness came, you stood against it. When others fled, you fought. When death called your name, you refused to answer." She rose from her throne and descended the steps. In her hands, she held a medallion made of pure crystal, shaped like a shield. "In the long history of our empire, no outsider has ever held the title I am about to give you. It is our highest honor, reserved for those who have proven their worth beyond all question." She placed the medallion around his neck. The crystal began to glow with inner light. "Rise, Kong Teiwu, shield of the crown." A gasp went through the court. The title was legendary. The last person to hold it had died defending a queen 4 centuries ago. Teiwu rose. His eyes met Sora's, and for the first time since anyone could remember, he smiled. A small smile, barely visible, but real. Queen Mira addressed the court once more. "We believed humans were beneath us because they are violent, because they feel too much, because they live and die in the blink of an eye. But this man has taught us that we were wrong. Courage is not the absence of fear or pain. It is standing between darkness and those who cannot protect themselves, even when it costs everything." She looked at Teiwu with something like respect, perhaps something like gratitude. The Valari live long lives, but somewhere along the way, we forgot how to truly live. Perhaps it takes a short-lived species to remind us what matters. The ceremony ended. The lords and ladies filed out, many of them staring at Teiwu with new eyes. He was no longer an animal to them. Here was something they did not quite have a word for. Later that evening, Teiwu stood at his post beside Princess Sora's door. He had insisted on returning to duty immediately, despite the doctor's protests. Standing was still painful. Breathing was still painful. But he was where he belonged. Sora emerged from her chambers. She wore simple clothing, not the formal gowns of the ceremony. She looked young and tired and happy. "You could have gone home," she said softly. "You could have had anything. Why did you choose to stay here?" Teiwu was quiet for a moment. The hallway was empty. The twin moons shone through the windows, casting pale blue light. "I spent many years looking for something worth dying for," he said finally. "On Earth, I thought I found it. I was wrong. The things I fought for were causes, ideas, flags, and borders. They did not care about me." Turned to look at Sora. In the moonlight, her skin glowed softly, and her silver eyes were bright. "For the first time in my life, I found something worth living for. That is much harder, and much more important." Sora reached out and took his hand. Her fingers were cool against his scarred skin. "I am glad you stayed, Teiwu. I am glad you let me." "Princess." They stood together in the quiet hallway, human and Valari. Two people from different worlds who had found something rare and precious in each other. Down the corridor. Elder Nyx watched them with a knowing smile. He had lived for 800 years and had seen countless relationships bloom and fade. But there was something different about these two. Something that defied logic and tradition and the vast gulf between their species. Humans, he thought, will change everything. And for the first time in centuries, change did not seem like something to fear. It seemed like hope.